Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight we are speaking with Laura Eyring in conjunction with her Cerulean Arts Collective Exhibition, which is on view now through April 7th. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So please tell us a bit about yourself and the show.
Okay, so um, I've been painting for decades at this point. Really started painting seriously after high school when I went to PAFA. Spent 4 years at PAFA, and then have pretty much been doing art consistently since then. Um, So it comes in waves where there's times in my life where I'm painting nonstop. And then I had a couple kids, got married, switched over to illustration. But the past 7 or 8 years, I've really focused on paintings in this kind of style, lots of really small brush strokes. Color is what gets me excited about painting. Um, and I guess this whole style kind of started after 2018. I had a whole year of cancer treatment, which wrapped up towards the end of 2018. And when I finished and was given pretty much a clean bill of health, it just felt like, wow, what I really want to do with my life is seriously focus on painting and getting my painting where I want it to be. Um, so I completely kind of what's the word, like when you remarket or refocus, rebranded, that's the word, rebranded my style. And I took all my earth tones off my palette, the typical PAFA, in the genre of Thomas Eakins. I had a lot of the burnt sienna, yellow ochre, sap green, that all went. And I started with really saturated color. I've always spent a lot of time mixing, but I took that kind of to the next level and just would mix 50, 60, 70 colors before starting a painting, and then go in with really small bits of color. And I started looking at the work of an artist named Erin Hansen, who's out in California. And I just loved her approach because she described laying down oil paint as like creating a mosaic, with each brushstroke is like laying down an individual gem of color. And so I've adopted this kind of approach to my work, and it works really well for me. I don't do any blending. I don't do much mixing or layering. It's all kind of a one and done in terms of brushstroke. And what I love about it, it gives me a really kind of loose, immediate feel to the painting. I don't fuss over each piece. So my general kind of technique is that I tone the canvas in bright colored acrylics, either pink or orange. Here you can see some of the kind of orangey, kind of salmon colored underpainting poking through. And then on top of that, like if I want the painting to be overall cool and feel, then my underpainting will be this orange and pinks and reds. And if I want the painting to finish with a warmer feel, then the underpainting is blues or greens or purples, cool tones. So I use that approach, and I paint really quickly because a lot of the time before I paint is spent with the drawing. And I don't do much painting on location anymore. I used to do a lot of plein air painting, and now I do a lot of drawing outside. But then when I work in the studio, that's where all the oil painting happens, is in the studio. Um, yeah, so the top one is from the Roxborough Reservoir, and it was kind of looking down into the trees there. And again, this was fall, which is such a great time to really do some fun things with color.
So Laura, when you say you spend a lot of time in the drawing, so do you do like studies for these, and then do you transfer a drawing to the canvas, or how do you get them on there?
So I do everything freehand. Um, I've tried, some shortcuts of trying to, well, when I was doing illustration, I'd try using a light box or projecting the image onto the canvas. And I found that always winds up making things look kind of stiff, even though you think it's going to be a fast and easy shortcut, especially if it's a more complicated composition. But I just go in with drawing with the brush and working from there. And now for this one, this is actually one of the pieces I'm happiest with. I really felt like this came out with what I'm shooting for, which is when I look into a woods or a forest, that feeling of just so much complexity of shapes and colors and kind of playing with that. And I'm not really big on trying to make anything look like exactly where I am. So it's not, as you can tell, it's not realism focused. So the feeling of being in a woods is what I want to get through, and that feeling of just bursts of color and shapes. And the other thought I had after my cancer treatment when I started this style was that it felt like confetti. Like I really wanted to just have my paintings feel like, man, it was like a party, it was like throwing confetti with these little bits of color. So this one was really a lot of fun to do. It's large, it's 40 by 50, and it's called Fall Forest Festival. But I just had a good time with, I did do some leaf studies for this. Like when I would go on walks in the woods, I would pick up leaves and then draw those from nature and do more detailed studies from those. And so even though these aren't real, like you wouldn't look at it and be able to tell what types of trees they are or what types of leaves necessarily, but there's a lot of drawing that is the foundation of the painting. And then I think it kind of frees me up to say, okay, I got the drawing in my head and now I can just go in and paint.
So do you spend a lot of time in the woods then?
Yeah, I do a lot of walking. I'm in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia. And so we're not far from the Wissahickon, which is just such a gorgeous part of Fairmount Park. And on the weekends, I'll travel a little farther and go to different parks, state parks. In the summer, we love going to state parks as part of vacation. So I really enjoy being outside, and for me, the main feeling that I want to convey with my paintings is just a sense of beauty and bringing some beauty indoors. And there's no deep hidden meaning. It's just to enjoy color, and I want the art to be uplifting. So the one on the Spring Creek, which is the painting on this wall to the far left, that's right from the Wissahickon. And that's probably the one that looks a little bit more like a specific location.
And was I correct in hearing that you don't paint in layers?
No, no, I just kind of put the brush strokes down and leave them alone. Um, I want the painting to feel loose and very immediate. So there's not much layering that goes into these. Um, I paint really fast. I almost hate to tell people how fast I paint because then they'll think, oh, you did that in 6 hours, but it did take me 40 years to learn how to do that in 6 hours. So usually a painting takes me, depending on the size, but about 3 sessions. And that's after I've spent a good hour and a half mixing paint and a couple hours of drawing and composition. And sometimes I even do a watercolor study just to get the colors, kind of mapped out. Now, this is the only one I've done of snow, which was a little more challenging. I'd love to try more of snow if we get another good snowfall.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Well, you never know, I guess, these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so the other part of it is like a lot of artists, I work a day job. And now my kids are teenagers, but for a lot of years, when they're younger, you just, you're really short on time. And it's kind of good and bad. Like it gets you to really focus your time to, one thing I had to consciously do was not waste time doubting my work, doubting myself, being self-destructive, and the kind of negative talk that really kills creativity. And so I said, you know what, I don't have the luxury of having time for that. I have to just, grab a couple hours and go in my studio and get as much art in as I can and make it a priority. And oh, and this one, while I'm talking, this one is from Delaware Water Gap, the water lilies. So it was up, we did a really long hike, and up near the top of the hike was a small pond with water lilies. It was really beautiful. It was a really challenging hike too.
so your profession is in science, in chemistry, correct?
Yeah, so I went to PAFA, finished PAFA in my early 20s, was waitressing and cleaning houses and painting. I showed through Art Forms Gallery in Manayunk at the time. And just really struggling to earn a living with the restaurant work. And then about the time I turned 30, I really wanted a job with some benefits and just a little bit easier, not always struggling to make ends meet. So I wound up going all the way back to school and getting a chemistry degree, which was kind of inspired by, between my second and third year at PAFA, I went to Haiti and volunteered I was the artist for a soil conservation project. And I was working with agronomists. And so many Haitian farmers couldn't read, so they needed somebody to draw pictures of how to plant and how to collect rainwater, how to pitch roofs so that rain is captured by gutters, and crops are planted so that not all the soil washes down the hillside. So I just followed the agronomists around for 3 months, and we came up with a small booklet of drawings for local farmers to work from. So it kind of got me interested in conservation and environmental issues. And that's what I do now. I do water testing for the water department.
Hmm.
So this painting that we're looking at, I actually had the wonderful experience of my brother treated us to a trip to Tahiti and an island off of Tahiti called Maria, which was just breathtaking. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And this painting was done right, where we were staying. Kind of almost like, not like a lagoon, but you're really kind of protected. The coral reefs protect you from a lot of waves. So you have this really kind of gentle water, and it's unbelievably turquoise. And it's just, the color was just exquisite there. I had to go on the Blick catalog and try and figure out what shade of Gamblin blue to use to get this turquoise. And I bought every tube of blue I could find, and then finally hit on radiant turquoise, which was the
Ah,
color that I used for this painting,
it
one of the
also
main colors.
seems like somewhat of a departure for you stylistically.
Yeah, so there's still lots of small bits of color. I did do a little blending in the sky, and I started kind of scrubbing a little bit with the brush strokes and then laying color on top, it is a little different. Um,
Is that to do with a location specifically, or?
yeah, it just felt like the clouds needed to be a little softer, because there is so much sky in the painting. So yeah, I kind of broke my rule of never blending, but because I did do some there. And then also just the shapes of the water were much kind of a smoother stroke and kind of a swirlier pattern than what I had been painting. But again, it was such, the tropical landscape was just so different. but I'd like to do some more. I have a lot of drawings from Maria and Tahiti, and I'll be doing more paintings of that style.
Yeah, it's interesting how a change of scene can affect your art.
Yeah.
And then your background, you grew up in a musical family.
Yeah, so this is kind of a hard show for me for that reason, because my father, he passed away 3 days after Christmas at the age of 94. He was in the Philadelphia Orchestra. He was the principal trumpet for many years, taught at Curtis. And we all played, we all started, I'm one of five, we all started music by the time we were in kindergarten, and lots of practicing constantly at our house growing up. Um, and I did a lot of piano, I did a lot of cello. And, I always felt like the visual arts were much more, that they were more suited for my style, that I love creating something. Um, and I love listening to music, but I really don't like getting up on stage. So I always kind of felt like if you took the audience away, I would have been fine. But of course, that's not really not really the point. But yeah, so the thing about my dad was he practiced every single day, no matter what. You practice when you feel like it, you practice when you don't feel like it, you practice when you're doing great, and you practice when you just blew an audition and things are going horribly. You just keep going, and you think very long term. You think, I want to be working on this piece in 5 years, I want to get to this point. And you really don't, you don't skip breaks and you don't get blocks. You just keep plugging along. And I think that was just watching my father, you know, just have such a passion for music, and it was his whole life, was such a wonderful role model. He was never content with his playing, and yet he didn't get discouraged either. He just kept shooting for better and better, and always competing with yourself, and always going, turning to your colleagues for inspiration, and sharing ideas and thoughts. And so it's hard because this is the first show where he's not in my life now, and he would usually go to every show I had, give me a brutally honest critique, and then say, good job, Laura. So I kind of, hear his voice when I'm looking at my work, like, kind of have an idea what he would say. And then also just, feeling like just really grateful to have the opportunity to have a life in the arts. So this one is the tree right in front of our house. I wanted in the painting to kind of feel like you're looking up at it a bit. And it was a fun one to paint, because when my daughter was little, she used to always swing from this bottom branch. And so I have good thoughts about this tree. And I guess what I was conscious of in this painting is there's a lot of parts where the greens and the oranges and the leaves are just kind of small brushstrokes, single brushstrokes. And then there's other parts in the painting where they're more painted as a leaf, and where the forms are larger and more, you can see, yeah, down on the left there, the darker green, kind of going in and out of it, where you can see the shape is definitely a leaf. And then when it's farther away, where you see just little specks of color.
Yeah, it's interesting how it moves and takes shape to a something representational, then back to paint, and then back again.
Yeah, so I like to think of what the viewer is going to see really close up, and then what they're going to see when they're 3 to 6 feet back, and then what they're going to see when they're 10 to 20 feet back. So I'm always kind of thinking, where's my darkest dark, where's my lightest light? putting those two next to each other, putting a cool color right next to a warm color to get kind of a, a real pop with that. So color placement and value placement is something I'm thinking about often when I'm planning out my paintings.
And then you did some really small ones too at the same time, which have a very different intimate effect.
Yeah, I was trying to, it's fun to work big. And if I had my way and more room, I'd probably be working even larger. I did have a couple epic flops this year. I had a 6 foot by 5 foot panels that just really crashed. And when we've all had paintings like that where you're just like, oh my God, it's beyond saving. And when they're that big and they don't work, it's really I guess demoralizing is maybe too strong a word, but you're just like, oh. So after I completely botched this enormous painting, I said, you know what, let's scale back. Let's do just a couple, some really small sketches. And my thought was to do, just one or two sketches, a week that are just small and loose, and I can kind of experiment with composition in a much easier to work with size.
Right. Gives you
So
a chance to reboot.
yeah.
So this is your sixth exhibition with us, I believe.
Oh, really? I was trying to think how long it had been because it was shortly after that I restarted my work, and when I had just finished my cancer treatment ending, when my husband actually, as a Mother's Day gift, gave me a critique that you had
Ah,
sponsored
yes,
with
right.
Bill Scott.
Mhm.
And I said, because I told him I really wanted to be a part of that. I needed a professional critique of my work at that point. And it was being held at your gallery. And that's when I first signed up and met you and met Tina and had a great critique from Bill Scott, and got to be a part of your gallery.
Just great. We're happy for it.
Good. Well, thank you.
It's a beautiful, beautiful show, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it is up through April 7th.
Yep.
People can come down and see it, and everything can also be seen on our website, ceruleanarts.com. And thank you for joining me here tonight, Laura.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully people can stop by and take a look at the work.
Yes.
Okay,
And
great. Thank you. Have a good night.
you too.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.